Okay. So today is basically the second class of your current affairs program, right? So we'll start with the first topic, which I've already given, which we have already discussed in the test, right? That is a very important current affairs from your prelim standpoint, right? So we have something known as Vadhavan port. So in the earlier class, we discussed something regarding dry port, if you remember, right? We discussed regarding dry port. Where was it located? The first dry port in, we discussed this. Yes, we're discussing it in the context of Bihar. Very good. Okay. We discussed this in the context of Bihar. Fine. So we already know we have discussed this aspect of it, but still many students were made mistakes in the test regarding the same question here. So the content was first dry port would be different. Okay, the current affairs that we discussed was regarding first dry port with respect to Bihar. Okay, both these are different. Fine. So in one of these statements, I also gave you regarding Vadhavan, that is, it is set to become India's biggest port upon completion. Right. Now, why this is important from your current affairs point of view is because this is the first instance in which a union government and the state government will jointly develop a greenfield port. Okay, so you have seen the 2024 paper also. I think we have already seen Greenfield Airport. Yes. Is my voice audible to everyone? Just let me know. For Lalita, it is not coming. It's coming, right? Yeah. Lalita, please check from your side, okay? It's audible for others, right? So yes, so why this is important is because when we talk about greenfield airports, we have already seen a question of the same asked in 2024. Okay, so this year we are focusing more on ports. They are very important, and there are many important news regarding the same. Okay, so please prepare this topic thoroughly. Ports, right? So here you can see first time the center and the state governments jointly developing a greenfield port. Okay, so here you can see that is Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority and the Maharashtra Maritime Board. They will be developing this port project. Right now, what is the relevance of this? The relevance of this port is it is going to be a major crucial link between four international north-south transportation corridor and Indian Europe economic corridor. For both of them, Indian Middle East Europe economic corridor. Okay, so for both of this, you see the relevance of Vadhavan port. It becomes very, very important. You have to focus on the same. Okay. Now, both these topics you have covered from the mains perspective, but from the prelims perspective, also we'll cover again in one of the current affairs classes. Right. That is trying to link India with Europe or with Middle East. These are the two initiatives. Fine. Now here again, the India's largest container port. So it's a factual question. You should know it is Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority. Okay. So currently, what is happening is all these major global trade routes we have or major schemes we have focused on. We have taken an initiative on the same, but still we do not have proper transshipment hubs. Okay, so this is a major problem with current Indian global trade also, right? That is, the country currently lacks deep draft ports. Okay, so therefore, what happens? So let's say if one of the case scenarios that was given is, for example, let's say you have to transport oranges from Nagpur to, let's say, Bangladesh. So what happens is the transshipment does not happen directly from India to Bangladesh. Okay, because it is done in major containers, what it happens is it goes to the port first from Jawaharlal Nehru port, then it goes to actually Sri Lanka, because that is where you have the port which handles high amount of cargo. Okay, so India currently lacks proper transshipment hubs. Okay, so currently we are trying to make three. transshipment hubs in India. Okay, so currently all our cargo goes through either Sri Lanka or it goes through certain Singapore. Okay, so it goes here and then it goes to Bangladesh, right? So this is the problem currently that we are facing, and Vadhavan port is trying to basically deal with this issue. Okay, so Vadhavan port's deep draft infrastructure will help in basically docking ultra large container ships. Okay, so currently we do not have that is a major challenge for us in the India shipping sector. Okay, so now a homework for you. Find out what are the other three transshipment hubs that is being created by the Indian government. Okay, one I'll give you, one is in Cochin. The other two you are supposed to find out. Okay, I'll ask a question on the same in the test. Okay, so that is your homework for you. Find out which two ports are being developed by the Indian government currently as transshipment hubs. Okay, so the intent is basically they should be able to target higher container ships. Fine. So this is an important current affairs. Please go through this. Important from your prelim standpoint. Fine. Okay. Now we come to the next one. The next one is regarding greenfield ports. Okay. So if at all direct question is asked regarding pair question, right? Which of the following are greenfield ports? You should know the ones which are currently that the government is focusing on. Okay. So the port, which are the new ports that government is trying to develop from a very basic level. Okay, so please know this. Here Vadhavan is just one of the one. Okay, so here port as well as the state where they are developing the same. Fine. Please go through this aspect. Okay, the next one is regarding another port, that is Paradigm. So here this one also I gave you in the test itself. So why this news is important? Because it basically surpassed Kandla, okay, in the highest cargo handling major port of the country. Okay, so Paradip Port Authority emerged as the highest cargo handling major port of India. Okay, and there is one more unique fact that you should know, that is it is the cheapest in terms of tariff among all ports of the country. Okay, so news aspect is there. For the first time it has happened. So that is why from a current affairs point of view also it is important. Okay, so ports, important themes, Vadhavan, Paradip, please go through it. Okay, now we come to another very important topic from your prelim standpoint, that is principal purpose test. Okay, so the term principal purpose test is sometimes seen in news in the context of. Okay, so you can take a guess here. What do you think might be the answer here? 4 options are given. 3, okay. Principal purpose test. You can take guesses. Okay, no issues. Even if it is wrong, no problem. Okay, if it was asked in your exam, what will you mark? Lalita 1, okay. Shashipriya 4. Latri 4. ठीक है 1 4 3 1 1 2 4 1. ठीक है, so let's see here. Mia Chaudhary 2. Okay, let us see the context in which this topic becomes very important. Okay, exactly one of the areas of focus it is there. Okay, so you see here, this is already a UPSC PYQ, right? The question is base erosion and profit shifting. Okay, already asked in your UPSC prelims. So along the same lines, I've created that question. Okay, now why this topic is important? Because India currently has amended its tax treaty with Mauritius. Okay, so you might have heard this in news even today also. Allegations have been made against a particular individual, right, Adani, regarding misuse of tax treaties, right, especially in the context of FPIs or manipulation of the stock trade, right? So India has currently basically signed a protocol amending its tax treaty with Mauritius. And for that, they have basically introduced something known as principal purpose test. Okay. So here currently under tax treaty, why was it that all our capital flows happened through Mauritius? Because there were certain provisions under which capital gains tax were exempted from FPIs for FPIs, right? So now to close in that loophole, we have introduced something known as principal purpose test. Okay. So here, what is the intent of this? So intent is basically if the government of India realizes that a person has gone through the FPI route or has invested through the FPI route only on the basis of getting some tax rebates. The principal purpose of that investment was tax rebate. Then they can put or they can categorize them or they can charge them extra tax. Okay, so here see the amended treaty introduces principal purpose test, essentially focusing on what? If the tax benefits that are under the treaty, they will not be applicable if it is clearly established that the principal purpose of any transaction was to get the necessary duty benefit out of the tax treaty. Okay, so if person is investing with the sole intention ki okay, uh, so that they do not have to pay higher taxes, then this treaty will not be applicable to them. Okay, so that is the principal purpose test. Okay, so here principal purpose test is in line with global efforts against treaty abuse. Okay, so no person can abuse tax treaties, right? So with the intent, especially under BEPS, that is base erosion and profit shifting. Okay, so now you can see after this amendment, what is happening? Any Indian or outbound cross-border investment, they have to factor in this. Okay, that is they will also be taxed accordingly. Right now, what is base erosion and profit shifting MLI? Okay, that also is important. This again a very important topic, that is multilateral instrument regarding BEPS. Okay, so here what happens generally when tax treaty, let's say some bilateral treaties are entered into. So let's say India is there and Mauritius is there. So once the treaty is implemented, the government also knows there are certain private individuals or certain entities which are finding legal loopholes in these treaties and using them for their own profits. Okay, so that is when there is something known as multilateral investment, which basically tries to fix in those legal loopholes. Okay, instead of amending the entire treaty. Okay, so multilateral instrument is it is basically offering concrete solutions for government to close loopholes in international tax treaties. Okay, so if one clause of the treaty, bilateral treaty, is misused, they have the permission to change that specific clause rather than negating the entire treaty and renegotiating the clauses once again. Okay, so here you can see the multilateral instrument allows jurisdictions to swiftly implement measures to strengthen their existing tax treaties. Okay, so as to protect governments against tax avoidance strategies. Okay, so this is basically an instrument used to fix in legal tax loopholes. Okay, so BEPS MLI, this is important. You should know the same. Okay, so two very important themes here. Principal purpose test. If your principal purpose is determined, the principal purpose was to evade tax, then the clause of the treaty will not be applicable to you. Okay. Yes, all international treaties can be fixed under through this. Okay, multilateral instrument. This is specifically in the context of tax, Ketan. Okay, not all treaties. Okay, we are just talking about tax. Okay, now based on it, this what would be the answer here? The term principal purpose test. It is to prevent treaty abuse. Fine. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So let's start. Let's go through the next topic. The next important topic is Higgs boson, right? Now, this one already is a UPSC PYQ question. Okay, what is the importance of such a discovery? So already asked, so we are not expecting the same question to be repeated, but the theme can be repeated. Okay, so that is the reason we are focusing on this topic. Okay, so why Higgs boson? Because the physicist who was responsible for the same, he passed away recently. Okay, physicist Peter Higgs passes away. So when we talk about Higgs boson, it is basically the particle that is supposed to account for the mass of every other fundamental particle. Okay, now what you should note here. So note here, first see the options that are given in UPSC. Okay, so what is the importance of Higgs boson? It enables us to understand. One second. Yes. Just one second. Yeah. So what is the points here that is mentioned? Yes, the importance of discovering this particle, right? So what is the functionality of it has been given here. Okay. So you also are supposed to understand and you're supposed to focus on those aspects only regarding Higgs boson, right? So again, why it is important? Because suppose this particle is supposed to account for the mass of every other fundamental particle. Okay, so importance is given here. Okay, now the discovery of Higgs boson, it completed the standard model of particle physics. Okay, so when we talk about standard model of particle physics, it basically discusses about the interaction of fundamental subatomic particles. Okay, but there was one lacuna in the standard model of particle physics, that is, it did not account for the mass element of subatomic particles, right? So it was Higgs boson and specifically Higgs field, which explained the lacuna that was there in the model. Okay, so that is what is important that you should know. Okay, now Higgs field, which was theorized in 1964, is responsible for giving particles their specific masses. Without it, particles would move at the speed of light, preventing the formation of stars, planets, and life as we know it. Okay, so please understand certain characteristics. So when we talk about Higgs boson, it is the particles which gain mass by when they interact with the Higgs field. Okay, so when we talk about electron, proton, neutron, all of it, the masses that they have, the what defines the masses that they have, it is based on the interaction with the Higgs field. Okay, now Higgs boson, highly unstable. Okay, it is highly unstable and it decays into other particles almost immediately, mostly photons. Okay, so it makes its detection challenging, and basically in 2012 they were able to do the same, and that is the year the question was asked. Okay, now producing a Higgs boson requires enormous amounts of energy, and that is why we are doing it in a Large Hadron Collider. Okay, so please understand this aspect. And what is its application that you should know. When you focus on Higgs boson, you are basically making advancements in computing, superconductors, and medical imaging. Okay, so whenever a question is asked regarding application part of it, have a broader perspective. Okay. Similarly, when we talk about the standard model of particle physics, again, we are focusing only from a generalist point of view because civil service in general is that exam, right? So what you should know basically is this standard model of particle physics focuses only on explaining the fundamental forces that are there, okay, on how they interact, okay. But what is important from your UPSC standpoint is you should know exactly what standard model does not explain. Okay, this should be very clear to you. That is, there are four fundamental forces: electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, and there is another one which is gravity. So this gravity is not explained by your standard model of particle physics. So know that aspect. Okay. Dark matter and dark energy, again, not included under this standard model of particle physics. And neutrino masses are not fully explained by, again, this. Okay. So if you know this content, by and large, you can eliminate options. This will help you in eliminating options. Okay. So please go through this aspect. Higgs boson, important, already a topic from a prelim standpoint. Okay. Now, why are we focusing on this specific term? Because we have something known as future circular collider, which is being currently developed. Okay. So CERN is pushing its plan to build the future circular collider. Okay. So this is supposed to be larger than your Large Hadron Collider. Okay. So what is the difference between the two? Yes, Large Hadron Collider is a proton-proton machine. That is, it is colliding basically protons here. Whereas when you talk about Future Circular Collider, it will be an electron-positron collider. Okay. So Future Circular Collider seen in news in context of, okay. So it is basically a particle accelerator. So know that fact, that is enough. Okay. And it is supposed to be 3 times the size of Large Hadron Collider. Fine. This is important from your prelim standpoint. Okay. Okay. The next topic that is important is, yes, a tiger reserve notified, a new tiger reserve which has been notified in Chhattisgarh. Important from your prelim standpoint, right? So here you have Guru Ghasidas Tamor Pingla Tiger Reserve. That's basically located in Chhattisgarh, and it is to be the third largest tiger reserve in the country. Okay, so after Nagarjuna Sagar Sri Salem, so already we know it's a UPSC prelims question, right? So that is critical tiger habitat. Which one has the largest critical tiger habitat? So that is already there. Okay, Manas Tiger Reserve, again a UPSC question, right? So from a large area perspective also, this is third largest. You should know the same. Okay. Now, apart from this, you should also know the nearby tiger reserves. Okay. So when we talk about Guru Ghasidas National Park, the closest one is Sanjay National Park. That is Sanjay Dubri Tiger Reserve. Okay. So the newly notified tiger reserve is contiguous with Sanjay Dubri Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh. And it is connected also to Bandhavgarh and Palamau Tiger Reserve in Jharkhand. So important tiger reserves, just go through it. It's there in your news. Fine. Chalo, come to the next topic. Okay, the next topic is, yes, so already a UPSC question, Biorock technology asked, right? Yeah, along the same lines, I've created another question for you, something known as sea ranching. Okay, which is there in news. So again, in the context of what? Okay. So you can take a guess here. When we talk about the term sea ranching, what is in the context of? Kanshaw, B, C, C. C. ठीक है, no. So let us see here, okay? Let's see here. When we talk about sea ranching, why this is in news? Because yes, currently the government is trying to launch sea ranching in a massive scale, especially in the state of Kerala. Okay, so in what context is this important? Okay, so we have already discussed one of the areas of focus is anything which threatens marine ecosystem. Okay, it becomes important. Okay, so when we talk about threatening of the marine ecosystem, we have now found that there are many species of marine fisheries which are now going to be basically extinct by 2050, right? So to protect the same and to prevent or to protect coastal communities also and their habitat, we have something known as sea ranching now. Okay, so here what is being done here is the government is basically creating certain reef modules in the sea coast. Okay, and then it is taking these fishes, small fisheries that are there, and leaving them in these reef modules so that they can grow in number. Okay, so here this is designed sea ranching to replenish marine fishery resources. Okay, and to promote sustainable fishing practices. Okay, so deployed under a particular scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. So here you can see artificial reefs are created, and finally sea ranching project is the next step in this process. Okay, so certain fishes they are trying to revamp. Okay, the next topic. Okay, now this one is important. That is something known as Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. Okay, so here when we have basically what is the intent of this initiative? The intent is to bind nations, to legally bind nations to end fossil fuel extraction. Okay, so it is something which is done, which has been started by Pacific nations, especially small island states there. Okay, and they are basically focusing on three major targets. One is to end fossil fuel extraction. No major new places should be extracted. So that is there. The second priority is wind down existing production. And the third one is to transition towards renewable energy. Okay, so it is trying to make it along the same lines as nuclear non-proliferation. Okay, so along the same lines, they are trying to do the same. Okay, now if such a statement is asked, India is a member of this treaty, what would be your answer? True or false? If you are talking about fossil fuels, what do you think? Something which is legally binding, would India agree to it on ending fossil fuel? It is clearly false. Okay, because we know India stands, especially when we talk about coal, thermal, all of these plants, right? We are already clear. We are dependent upon the same, right? So India is a member to this treaty? No, right? Now, so it operates on basically three pillars. This initiative we have discussed: non-proliferation, that is to end any new oil and gas production. Okay, to phase it out. Okay, that is an equitable plan to shut down existing fossil fuel production. And finally, just transition. Okay, that is adoption of renewable energy. Okay, so a new initiative, please go through it. Okay, currently it is supported by World Health Organization and European Parliament also, but India not so. Fine. Now, in the same context, there are two other alliances also which are trying to achieve the same target. Okay, so there is something known as Powering Past Coal Alliance and another one which is known as Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance. Okay, now what is needed from you here is to focus only on the purpose specifically. Okay, so when we talk about Powering Past Coal Alliance, so here the intent is to phase out coal-fired power stations, except those with carbon capture and storage. Okay, so if such a statement is clearly given, students will clearly eliminate such an option because of the keyword here. Okay, so please know when we talk about Powering Past Coal Alliance, yes, you can have coal-fired power stations also if it has the ability to carbon capture and storage. Otherwise, you are phasing it out. Okay, so again, coalition of governments, businesses, and organizations. So it is not intergovernmental; it's an alliance. Okay, and founded in 2017 in COP23 Climate Summit. Similarly, Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance, you are trying to phase out oil and gas production. Okay, launched again. See here. Okay, now the homework for you is you have to find out what is India's stance. Okay, for both these alliances, what is India's stance? Find it out. Okay, so important from your prelim standpoint, this one is important: fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty initiative. Okay, so if this is clear, okay, now another one which is very important, that is Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence. Okay, now why this is important? Because this is the first legally binding international treaty on the use of AI. Okay, so it basically holds governments responsible for any misuse of AI that happens either in the public sector and private sector also. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, so it prioritizes human rights. Okay, so it prioritizes human rights and in the regulation of public and private sector AI systems. Okay, so if you are using AI in your public sector, for example, let's say if you are using it in Aadhaar or some, and if it is misused due to AI, then it will hold those governments responsible also. Okay, so this is very important. Please know the same. Okay, so it covers the use of AI systems in the public sector, including companies acting on its behalf and in the private sector also. Okay, so signatories will be accountable for any harmful and discriminatory outcomes of AI. Okay, and any victims of AI, if there are, they will have recourse to legal action. Okay, if their rights are violated, they can do the same. Okay, so here you can see upon ratification, member states will have to ensure what? Okay, AI systems are consistent with obligations to protect human rights. The second important point here is the AI should also, it should not undermine democratic institutions. Okay, so the member states who are signing this convention, they have to ensure that, for example, fake news is being generated. If it is done on by AI, again, that will ensure that member states are held accountable for the same. Okay. And the third one is if you have been violated in any case, then individuals should have fair access and participation in public debate, and they should have ability for legal recourse also. Okay. Now there are few exemptions which are given: national security and research and development. Always it is there. So few exceptions to the applicability of framework convention. Okay. So here there are few states who have joined. That is your homework. Okay, find it out. What is USA stance here? What is India stance? And what is European Union stance regarding this convention? Okay, that is your homework. Find out, is it part of it? Has India been already signed it? What is it? Okay, so that you should know. Okay, so please go through this. Important. You have to know this content regarding AI. Okay, next is from an agriculture sector. The theme is EU deforestation regulation. Okay, now what is the new law? Again, it is related to European Union and it specifically focuses on two plantation crops, that is rubber and coffee. Okay, so what is this regulation? The regulation basically says that the planters of rubber or coffee, they have to produce necessary paperwork telling the European Union that the coffee or the rubber that they have grown is not grown on a deforested land. Okay, that is, it is not that forests have been cut and plantation crops have been grown there. Okay, so EU compliant basically indicates the growers forest based coffee produce, it is legal and is not sourced from any deforested land, or it is not unethically cultivated. Okay, so earlier why this was in news? Because EU had set a mandatory diligence procedure and compliance deadline of December 2024. Okay, which would have imported our exports of rubber and coffee. Okay, but now what has happened is they have extended that deadline. Okay, now what is the problem from plantation sectors? To show the necessary paperwork, it will require specific expertise. Okay, so that is why they Indian government also has asked for extending this deadline. Okay, so right now EU Parliament has voted in favor of a proposal by the European Commission to delay the implementation of EU deforestation regulation. Okay, so they have basically delayed the same, and which is beneficial for our Indian farmers. Okay, so please go through that aspect also. Fine. Okay, the next theme. The next theme is something known as a new initiative, One Day, One Genome Initiative. Okay. So again, here you can take a guess. What is the primary purpose of such an initiative? Okay, One Day, One Genome Initiative. You can take a guess here. Yeah, C, fine, B. नहीं, नेचर रेस्टोरेशन लॉ इज डिफरेंट. देखो, हर जगह पे प्रिजर्वेशन की बात हो रही है केतन, यहाँ पे डिफरेंट है ना. EU हैज मेनी सच इनिशिएटिव्स. दिस वन इज ओनली फोकसिंग ऑन टू क्रॉप्स, दैट इज रबर एंड कॉफी. ठीक है, वहां पे तो आप पूरा एरिया को प्रोटेक्ट करने की बात कर रहे हो बाई 30%, है ना. दैट्स डिफरेंट थिंग. ठीक है. या all right, so let's see here. Okay, One Day, One Genome Initiative, a very unique initiative. And I will tell you why it is unique, because the purpose of it is very unique. Okay. Generally, whenever we talk about One Genome Initiative, when we talk about genome perspective, it is from a human aspect, okay, human being aspect. But here you have an initiative by the Department of Biotechnology, where the purpose is to highlight the unique bacterial species that are found in India. Okay, so the purpose is very unique, which you will not be able to guess easily also. Right? In the exam hall, if you directly see the question, you'll not be able to easily guess. Right? So that is the reason, know the purpose here. Right? So the role, you are trying to highlight the unique bacterial species found in our country and emphasize their role in environment, agriculture, and human health. Okay, so what is this initiative? The initiative is basically trying to give a detailed bacterial account or microbial account on all the microbes that are there in the country. Okay, and make it freely available to the public. Okay, so what is the intent here? The intent is so as to promote the scientific knowledge, and the second one is to make industrial use of these microbes. Okay, so here you can see here the microbial genomics data will make it more accessible to the general public. Okay, and at the same time it will drive in innovations also. Okay, specifically focusing on environment, agriculture, and human health. Okay, so now based on it, what would be the answer here? What is the primary purpose here of One Day, One Genome Initiative? It is, yes, B. Okay, so you can see it is not easy to guess. Okay, so that is the reason, when certain initiatives which are very particular in nature, especially from biotechnology. The second theme is with respect to pension. The third theme is with respect to employment. Okay, when you have these three themes where the purpose is very unique, or an initiative where the purpose is very unique, you have to give extra focus on the same. Okay, that is where UPSC generally tends to ask question. Right? Okay. The next one is regarding CubeSat standard here. So India has basically adopted CubeSat standard for global satellite play. Okay, it has adopted the same. So the reason is they want to ensure there is high research that is going on in educational institutions, and they should be able to experiment with their necessary CubeSat standards. Okay, so right now India has adopted the standard. That is, the standard is it has to weigh up to 1 kg, and the size of the satellite has to be 100 mm3. Okay, so here it is highly affordable, it is accessible, and the plan aims to support educational institutions in their research work. Okay, so which is the organization which will be looking for the same? It is again Bureau of Indian Standards. Okay, this is again something which you will not be able to Even if a correct statement is given, you will think it is wrong. Okay, so please understand, it is Bureau of Indian Standards which is responsible for implementing this standard as part of government's initiative. Okay, so please know this. Current affairs also. Okay, now coming to the next one, another mission, which is SpaceX. Okay, so here it is Space Docking Experiment, which is India's first mission to demonstrate autonomous docking technology in space. Okay, so basically two satellites are basically sent to the space, and then they do precise movements. Okay, and then they become a single entity here. Okay, so here you can see they are positioned at an altitude of 700 kilometers, and these satellites will carry out precisely orchestrated movements and culminating in their autonomous docking. Now, why this is important? Okay, when we talk about this mission, it is important in the context of, because we are trying to construct an Indian space station above Earth. Okay, so we'll be sending individual satellites there, and we are trying to reassemble it in space. Okay, so for that, this mission is important. Okay, for satellite refueling, for transfer of astronauts. Again, you might have recently heard, right? When you talk about docking, again, the issue is Sunita Williams, right? Because of which she has not been able to return, right? So this also is trying to address the same. That is, we are trying to demonstrate our autonomous docking technology, right? So this docking capability will also be able to extend operational life of geostationary satellites by allowing replacement of their propulsion units. And it would be necessary for human spaceflight as well as specifically for Chandrayaan 4. Okay, especially for Chandrayaan 4 mission, this would be very important. Okay, so please go through this aspect. Important mission, the purpose you should know. Okay, now when you talk about countries which already have this technology, US, Russia, China, and then India. Okay, so again, India is the 5th country to have this technology, 4th country, 3rd country. Okay, so you should know that number also. Already Russia, USA, and China have it. India is the 4th. Fine. Okay. Fine. Come to the next one. The next one is from an art form, which why we are focusing on this art form particularly because recently Prime Minister mentioned this art form in his Man Ki Baat, right? He mentioned the same, and it's a traditional art form of Telangana. So please go through it. Okay, it's aerial art, traditional art form of Telangana, and depicting stories from Indian mythology, folklore, and daily life. Okay, and it showcases the secular component. So the place is important. The theme which the art covers is important here. Okay, so vibrant colors are there, rich local motif is there, and it also depicts mythological epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Garuda Purana. Okay, so please go through this, just covered it, right? Now, coming to the next theme, the next theme is regarding, you can see here, right? Already favorite UPSC topic, that is missile systems, right? So when we talk about missile systems, this is a UPSC question, this is a UPSC question, okay? So Agni is there, BrahMos is there. So in multiple years, multiple questions have been asked regarding missile systems in India, right? Now, along the same theme, why we are focusing on current affairs? Because India basically launched its first long-range hypersonic missile. Okay, so India's DRDO successfully flight tested a long-range hypersonic missile of the coast of Odisha. Okay, so the range is basically 1500 kilometers here. So know that fact. Okay, and it has been indigenously developed. Now, when we talk about hypersonic, again, how should you prepare? When for UPSC, you will focus on hypersonic, supersonic, and ballistic missile. Okay, you will focus on all these three, and you will try to know the content regarding three, the differences between the three. That is important from your prelim standpoint. Okay. So when we talk about hypersonic, we are talking about having a speed of at least 5 times the speed of sound, Mach 5. Okay. Now, unlike ballistic missiles, which follows a predetermined path, hypersonic weapons do not follow a predetermined arched trajectory. Okay, so they can maneuver because to their way on the way to their destination. Okay, so the differences also is important. You have to know the same, right? Now, two types of hypersonic weapon systems are there. Hypersonic glide vehicle is there, which India is developing, and hypersonic cruise missiles is also there, right? Now, when you talk about, let's say, BrahMos, right? So when you talk about BrahMos, is it a ballistic missile, hypersonic missile, supersonic missile? What is it? From your UPSC standpoint, that becomes important, right? When you talk about, let's say, BrahMos is there, Agni is there, right? So different Prithvi is there, right? So different missile systems, you should know what is their categorization, right? So yes, BrahMos is supersonic, right? So here when we talk about hypersonic, yes, there are two such systems. One is a glide vehicle, one is a cruise missile. Okay. Now, what are the advantages here? Yes. So here they can target distant, defended or time-sensitive targets. They rely solely on kinetic energy for destruction, and they fly on lower altitudes than ballistic missiles. Okay. So please go through this aspect. And here a diagram is also given, right? So when we talk about ballistic missile, its trajectory is given. Hypersonic glide vehicle, its trajectory is given, and hypersonic cruise missile, again, the trajectory is given. Okay, so the differences between the three you should clearly know. Fine. So please go through this topic, important from your prelim standpoint. I'll ask a question on the same. Okay, so please do a bit more research on it. Okay, what is the differences between all three? Fine. I'll ask the question in a test, so you'll understand. Okay, now when you're talking about hypersonic missiles itself, in current affairs, I've come across certain weapon systems. Okay, so you already know, right? Third asked already in your UPSC. Iron Dome, again, important, right? So like that itself, when you talk about important weapon systems that are already there in use, so you should know at least what it correlates to. Okay, so that you can at least you can take a guess, proper guess, right? So here you have something known as Kinzhal weapon systems. So that is Russian hypersonic air-launched ballistic missile. Okay. When you talk about Army tactical missile system, that is of US. It is supersonic tactical ballistic missile. Okay. When you talk about Patriot missile system, it is air defense system, which has right now been there. It is this one is actually in the news because of which war? Israel war, right? Patriot missile system. And here there is something also known as Dragon drones. Okay, so please go through these weapon systems. You should just have an idea. That is why I have included them. Okay, so it relates to either Russia-Ukraine war or Israel. Okay, Israel war. Fine. So come to the next one. The next one is device-to-device satellite service. Why I've covered this? Because yes, you have BSNL launching India's first device-to-device satellite service here. Okay. So when we talk about device-to-device satellite service, yes, the new service is in collaboration with VSAT. It's a California-based communication technology here. Now this one, again, it is in news. It is also, we are focusing is in the context of Starlink. Okay, so currently certain issues are going on between Musk and which businessman here in India? We are in talks with for satellite services. There is one gentleman, exactly, right? We are talking with Ambani, right? So because of which, again, satellite service might be important from your prelim standpoint. So one of the entities doing this, we are covering the same. Okay. So India's first device to device satellite service. Now, while satellite connectivity has been introduced in devices like Apple iPhone 14 and all, such services have been restricted in India to government and military use. Okay. So now BSNL satellite service will allow users to make emergency calls, SOS messages they can send, and even process UPI payments where cellular Wi-Fi networks are unavailable. So just know this application point of view, that is important. That is enough. Okay. Okay. Come to the next term. Yeah, the next one is important. That is carbon border adjustment mechanism, right? So this one I think everyone might have heard of. The term carbon border adjustment mechanism used in news in context of Akhil, fine. What about others? Right. ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है. B and C, okay. Acha, is it a global initiative? This one, carbon border adjustment mechanism. This is an initiative of exactly. ठीक है. So we are talking about European Union. Fine. So why this is a news? Because currently in your COP, India and China, they have objected to European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism here. Okay. So what is the purpose of this initiative? The initiative purpose is, yes, if you're trying to shift your production to third or let's say to developing countries, then those products, if they are emitting the necessary if they're not following the environmentally clean processes, then they will be taxed as and when they enter European Union, right? So here these are taxes on certain products which are coming in from developing countries basically on the basis of their emissions footprint in their production process, right? So basically European Union does not want the production to shift away from European Union to developing countries, right? So how will it work? The European importers, they will have to buy carbon certificates corresponding to the carbon price that would have been paid had the goods been produced under EU's carbon pricing rule, right? That is, if they are producing their products in European Union or within European Union, they have to stick to higher standards, right? So along the same lines, if they are not doing it for the same, they have to buy the carbon certificates. Okay. A non-EU producer, then they can, yes, if they have already paid a price for the carbon used in the production of imported goods, then the corresponding cost can be again deducted for a European Union importer. Okay, so these are two ways in which it is there. So here what you have said is correct. It is basically a system of tax import based on carbon emissions involved in their production. Right. So that is there in your news. Please go through the same. Okay. So what is the major purpose? The major purpose is it allows industries in Europe to remain competitive while continuing to maintain high environmental standards. Okay. But for developing countries, it hurts the export competitiveness of developing countries. Okay. So please go through this aspect. Okay. The next scheme, that is Vigyan Dhara scheme. So we have basically two schemes by Department of Science and Technology, right? So one is Vigyan Dhara scheme here recently. It's a unified central sector scheme here. Okay. That is under Department of Science and Technology. So it is again an umbrella scheme. Okay. It merges three into one. So the three schemes being, one is Science and Technology Institutional and Human Capacity Building. Okay. The second one is research and development. The third one is after you have done the necessary capacity building, after you have done the necessary research, you should implement the same on a very large scale. So innovation has to happen, and it has to happen from school level to higher education to the industry. Okay. So three major schemes into one, that is Vigyan Dhara. Okay. So what is the primary objective of Vigyan Dhara scheme here? So basically to strengthen our science technology ecosystem. Okay. Now the unique point that you should note here is improve the full-time equivalent research count. Okay. That is the people who are employed for as full-time researchers, that number has to substantially increase. So that is one of the primary objectives of the scheme. Okay. The second important unique objective that you have to focus on is reinforce innovation at all the levels, from school to industry to startups. Okay. The rest, I think you will be able to mark. That is women, participation of women has to increase in STEM fields, promote research in key specific areas, and develop R&D labs. Okay. So when you talk about Vigyan Dhara scheme, you are specifically focusing on creating a proper science and technology infrastructure. Okay. So that is the purpose of the scheme, Vigyan Dhara scheme. Fine. There is another policy which was launched, that is Bio E3 policy. Okay. Now here, what is the objective? When you talk about Bio E3 policy, that is after you have got the necessary innovation, how can you implement it on a commercial scale? Okay. So that is the use of biotechnology for economy, for environment, and for employment generation. Okay. That is the policy. Okay. So intent is to ensure there is high performance biomanufacturing that is happening, and the facilitate the shift away from chemical based industries to sustainable bio based models. Okay. So basically intent is to establish biomanufacturing facility, biofoundry clusters, and bio AI hubs. Okay. Use the knowledge for commercial purposes. Okay. That is commercialization of bio-based product. Right. Now, so here you can see the bridge the gap between laboratory scale and commercial scale manufacturing. Okay. Collaborate with startups, SMEs, and established manufacturers. The second aspect is employment also. Okay. For employment, focus on creating job opportunities, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay. And with respect to environment, focus on ensuring enough focus is given on ethical biosafety considerations. Okay. So here you have to align with international standards to enhance India's competitiveness in the global biotechnology market. Okay. So Bio E3 policy, one is economy, ensure commercialization of bio-based products, environment, ensure it is done on an ethical basis. Okay. And the third one is employment, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay. So when we talk about the key features of Bio E3 policy, so please go through them. Okay. Directly, such a question can be asked. Okay. That is innovation driven support for R&D, establishment of biomanufacturing and bio AI hub. Now this is important. Okay. That is prioritization of regenerative bioeconomy models for green growth. Okay. So focusing on those, using those bio-based products, which will ensure that is the on a global scale, there is regeneration. Okay. It is not that you're taking or exploiting resources in a linear fashion, focusing more on the circular model part of it. Okay. So please go through this aspect. Okay. Facilitation of India's skilled workforce expansion and alignment with government's initiative with net zero and lifestyle for environment. Okay. So please go through. These are the key features that are given under the Bio E3, right? Now, what is important from your prelim standpoint is the specific strategic sectors that are there under Bio E3 policy. Okay. So it is basically focusing on 7 key sectors Okay, you have to know them. Okay, that is high value, bio-based chemical, biopolymer, smart protein, precision, biotherapeutics, climate resilient agriculture, carbon capture and utilization, and marine and space research. Okay, so these are major target strategic sectors in which Bio-E3 policy is focusing on. Fine. So when you talk about Vigyan Dhara, you can see here the intent is to enhance S&T infrastructure, whereas Bio-E3 is revolutionize biomanufacturing. Okay, so please go through this aspect. Fine. Chalo, if this is clear to you, all right. So with that, I end the current affairs class, right? Now, what will you focus on? We'll focus on certain themes. I've given you certain homeworks, right? So focus on those components also. So when we discuss the current affairs topics, you are not just supposed to cover the content, the basic content, okay? The static content of it also you have to go through, okay? Or we try to implement the same through the tests, okay? The case in point is dry port that I asked, right? So one student was telling me, sir, dry port content was given, but the static content was not given. So that is the exercise that you are supposed to do through the current affairs program, right? So I told you in the first class itself, if at any point of time, one keyword you're not able to understand, search it out, Google it, search more on it. Okay, that is important. Okay. Chalo, with that, I end the class. And if you have any doubt, you can stay back. The rest of you can leave. The class for today is over.